The next thing we're going to talk about is evaluation concepts, how to determine what a property is really worth. And there's three basic appraisal approaches that, and not only that, but CMA approaches. The first one, think of it this way. Remember it as MIC, Mickey Mouse Club, M-I-C-K-E-Y, okay? So the first thing is, the M stands for market. And that means that we evaluate most residential property on the basis of comparable sales. There's a lot of different ways of doing this. My father was an appraiser and so was my brother, both of them for about 40 years. So I kind of grew up with this stuff. And they would tell you that the way to figure out a property's value is to compare it with other ones that have sold recently. We had many lively discussions about that sort of thing. I also believe that there's other factors that should be incorporated into that to value what a property is going to sell for today, including, for example, what's the competition? What are the active listings out there? What are some expired listings? Not only the solds, but also the actives and the expireds. What are the market conditions? But we're going to talk in detail about some of the other factors. But comparable sales, or the market, is number one. Number two is income. What is a property worth because it's generating this kind of money? And of course, that is usually involving rental property, duplexes, everything from a duplex to a 1,000-unit apartment complex to most commercial. People try to infer or imply, based on what the property is producing in terms of income, what its value is. The last one is cost, and that is simply, this is how much money it costs to build it, and therefore it's worth X. And of course, that's primarily limited to new construction. So how do we determine fair market value? Well, the classic definition of an appraisal is what is an average ready, willing, and able seller willing to accept for their property? What is an average ready, willing, and able buyer prepared to pay for a particular property, acting without compulsion or duress and at arm's length? I want to talk very briefly about what that means. Ready, willing, and able, of course, I think is self-explanatory. Compulsion means that I've got to have the property. I grew up in this property. My mom lives down the street. There's some kind of compelling reason that someone would buy this particular property. And under those circumstances, they may overpay for it. Duress is just simply a divorce, a death, a life event of some kind that creates downward pressure on pricing because somebody just wants to, quote unquote, get out of Dodge. So those are some factors. And arm's length means that someone involved in the transaction is not a brother-in-law or a friend, because sometimes that distorts what people are willing to pay for a property as well. So what are the factors? What really matters? Okay, it's become part of the lexicon of America that the most important thing is location, location, and location. And there's a reason for sayings. There's a reason for good sayings, because they're usually true. And the other thing that's worth talking about is property evaluation. This is an important concept I want to take a minute or two on. This is an opinion of value. It is not engraved in granite anywhere. And be sure to tell your sellers, I've been wrong before, okay? We are going to make a very well-informed, intelligent guesstimate as to what we think your house is going to sell for in today's market, and we could be wrong. If we don't get any showings, we're really overpriced. If we get a few showings but no offers, that means that people are looking at your home physically. It's of enough interest that they're willing to come out and take a peek. But if we're not getting offers, they're using this is important language, they're using your home to make a decision to buy someone else's. And at some point in time, we need to adjust the price to something more competitive. The number one, in most areas, the number one prime determinant of value is the perception of quality on the part of the public for a specific school system. We're going to talk some more about fair market values. Most residential property is, of course, being done, as we mentioned, using comparables, recent sales, similar in style, location, and adjustment factors. We're going to talk about adjustment factors in just a second. Comparables have to be adjusted to reflect the value of the subject property. The market today sets these sale prices, and it also sets the values. In recent years, because of scarcity and because of various market conditions, far more buyers than sellers, homes in the United States have skyrocketed in the last 3 years, up 42%. And we don't see any reason to believe that that trend, while it may soften a little bit, the pace, we don't anticipate that that's going to become what we call a buyer's market, in the sense that there's more sellers than buyers for the foreseeable future. The other thing I want to mention to you is value does not necessarily equal sales price because of the factors we talked about: compulsion, duress, and arm's length transactions. So those are some factors that enter in not only to the definition of an appraisal, but also the appraisal process and the CMA process as well.